All right, good afternoon. I'll call to order this January 9th, 2018 workshop of the Powhatan County School Board. Ms. Wilson, if you'll let the minutes reflect that all members of the school board are present this evening, along with our student liaison and Dr. Jones. Are there any changes necessary, additions, substitutions necessary for the agenda, the draft agenda as presented this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the draft agenda for the workshop as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of approving the draft agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to our first public comment period of the evening. This period provides an opportunity for individuals or delegations wishing to comment publicly to the board to do so. There is a time limit of 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes for a representative of a group. There is a 30-minute total time limit. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak, please identify yourself by name to the board. Once again, public comment period is open if anyone would like to make a comment to the board. All right, seeing no movement, I'll close this public comment period. That takes us to the first presentation of the workshop. Dr. Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item that we have two presentations for you from the Department of Instruction. First one is the initial review of our gifted plan, the 6-year update of our gifted plan, and Dr. Alejandro is going to lead you through some highlights of the updated plan and answer any questions that you may have. Dr. Alejandro?
Thank you. The gifted plan, actually, you've seen this fairly regularly because we actually update it every year and provide small tweaks based on information and feedback that we get from stakeholders. But this year, we had to create a comprehensive review of the plan. And so I'll walk you through a few of the changes and how the plan is set up. First of all, the gifted plan is something that is created, a template is created by the Department of Education, and there are required components, and you'll see those 11 components that are required. Some of it allows for language to be changed within the plan. Some of it is language that is mandated by the state under the standards of accreditation, standards of quality that we have to have just because of state regulations. So we do make changes to the components that we are allowed to change. Just a little bit of background about who this is designed for. We have several areas of giftedness that we identify as a county. We have specific academic aptitude in the areas of English and mathematics, and those are for students K-12. And then at the 9th grade level, we provide an opportunity to identify students who are gifted in the area of visual or performing arts. And we serve those students either at Powhatan High School, and we do serve some of those students at our regional program at Appomattox Regional Governor's School. For the service provisions, we do that through our gifted resource teachers. We are fortunate to have 3 gifted resource teachers at the elementary level, one at each of the elementary schools, as well as a gifted resource teacher and supervisor at the middle school, and then a gifted resource teacher for consultation at the high school. In addition, we have general education teachers who have received professional development, either from their own personal professional development or things that we provide through the summer so that they have experience working with gifted students. As far as the plan update, we wanted to make sure that we created a plan that was reflective of what our stakeholders needed, what our students needed, and what our teachers were seeing as needs within the school building. So the feedback that we got was from the advisory committee. We also, last year, as part of our advisory, created a gifted plan subcommittee. This is the first time we had that type of subcommittee, and that group actually read the plan cover to cover, all 54 pages of it, and provided small group feedback on things that they had seen within the plan or things that had come up through the larger advisory committee. We also had a Virginia Department of Education audit a year and a half ago, so we used some of that feedback as well as our annual stakeholder surveys. In those responses in each of those areas, we found that there was a need or a desire for additional professional development for our classroom teachers, that there was a large discussion around equitable representation of different student populations within the gifted program. There also was a discussion around retesting students when they transition from grade levels, whether it was from elementary to middle or middle to high. How we would address the needs of transfer students who transferred in with gifted services in place, and then how we could best deliver services at the secondary school, secondary programs, knowing that some of the way that we're delivering regular instruction has changed there. So I'll just walk you through a little bit about what has changed within the plan. Part 1, which is the philosophy, we did want to add some clarification and some examples of some strengths that we had in the visual arts aptitude identification program. In Part 2, which is program goals and objectives, there was a discussion around how our scope and sequence worked from K through 12, that vertical articulation of our gifted programming, so we added some language in there to provide some direction for our gifted resource teachers in implementing that. We also added language for push-in for professional development, and by that, we found that because we have those elementary gifted resource teachers, there's an opportunity for those gifted resource teachers to go in and work with classroom teachers while they're in the classroom to support them in differentiation for the gifted students within the classroom. And then again, respecting the request of the stakeholders to discuss that equitable representation of students from gender, racial, and socioeconomic backgrounds. So that language was added into Part 2. In Part 3, we addressed the screening and the referral process and the identification process. The way that we do our referrals, or our identification rather, is by using the Kingor Observation and Inventory, and that is something that our teachers are trained on at the elementary level, and we wanted to make sure that there was a more clear description of what that looked like so that our folks that were reviewing our plan understood how we went through that process. Also, as we all know, our website had some issues with compliance, and we've updated our referral form so that that is compliant. And then we have provided some clarity for the transfer process. What we're allowing now is for students who transfer in as gifted, unless their identification process from the transferring school division is significantly different, they will transfer in as gifted without a different retesting program going on. And then also we wanted to be a little bit more explicit in our explanation of the identification criteria in English and math. In Part 4, that's the notification procedures. This one actually, the actual content didn't change. The layout of it changed so that it was more user-friendly for our parents and our stakeholders. Rather than having charts that discussed the referral process and the notification process, it was a narrative description, which really, I think, provided some better clarity for people as they read the plan. And then the same with the appeals process. So if students have been recommended for testing and they are found or not found gifted, how the appeals process works, and that again was to make it easier for our parents to work with school-based administration on that process. Part 5 is a discussion around change in instructional services. We removed the automatic reevaluation at grades 5 and grades 8. So what was happening was all the students at grade 5 were being tested to determine whether or not they would receive services at the middle school level, and the same thing was happening at the end of 8th grade to see if they would receive services in high school. And we removed that process, and so unless there was some sort of concern that came from a parent or from a teacher, that process, those students would remain in receiving gifted services as they advanced from level to level. And then also we had some steps for an annual review added in, though, for teachers or parents who are concerned about how the services that they're receiving, their child is receiving, so that there is an annual review for student eligibility within the program as well. In Part 6, that's the appropriate service options. Again, changed to the presentation of this a little bit to make sure that it was a little bit more clear for our families to read. So this includes a checklist of the service options that are provided. And then also talked about the focus area at the high school, that it's an optional gifted resource teacher and collaborative consultative model, which reflects what's actually been happening at the high school. When we saw the changes, I think we've discussed this in the past, when we moved and opened the ACA program at the high school, the way that we were clustering the students at the 9th grade level in the English program, that went away because we weren't able to cluster all of the students into one single classroom. The way that we've changed the plan now more clearly reflects the services that we're providing our students at the high school level. So where we're going to go from here, as you can see, we did have some time where we have reviewed the plan between March and October. In November, at the Gifted Advisory Committee meeting, a draft of the plan was presented to the committee. And it was also shared via email with the 16-17 Gifted Advisory Committee members. Those folks were really involved in the process last year, and because this has lasted over the course of 2 years, wanted to make sure that anybody who was on the Gifted Advisory from last year had the option to weigh in. And now we're presenting this to you all for your review. We'll also present this to the community at large for any feedback that they may have, and then we'll ask for approval from you all in February.
All right, thank you, Dr. Alejandro. Questions from the board for Dr. Alejandro or Dr. Jones? Or comments? Ms. Emo.
As you know, I serve on that committee, and Dr. Alejandro's right. There was a very dedicated group of citizens last year, and there are this year as well, but there just seemed to be a lot last year, so I think that helped a lot to,
Yes.
Get the plan. One of the things they asked me to ask the board to consider is the people that would like to get gifted endorsement, the teachers that would like to get gifted endorsement, if there was a way we could set that up so that they could do that. What is the funding for, what is it, staff development, or is it?
Yeah, professional development or tuition reimbursement. So
Tuition
each of our teachers has access to $800 a year in tuition reimbursement, that as long as it's related to their professional responsibilities, can be used for conferences or specifically for tuition for courses, which is what the teachers would need to probably do in order to get their gifted endorsement. So if a teacher has an interest in that, then they could contact Human Resources or Dr. Alejandro's office and talk through that plan with them about how they could use those reimbursement dollars to help pay for those courses or seminars that they may need to attend.
Yeah, and that's what I would like to know, if we on our side could put that in the list of opportunities that are available to the teachers so that they would know whether they do or not. And then they also were real concerned about the professional development for the classroom teachers because of the differentiation. I saw you put that in there too, so.
And with that, I've reached out to the University of Richmond, who is working on a summer opportunity for our teachers, if we have enough interest from teachers, to provide more of a workshop-based program rather than a full course or an endorsement for those teachers who want to have some exposure to gifted and understanding the gifted learner a little bit more. And so we will be sharing that opportunity with teachers who may be interested in some of that summer work as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Alejandro or Dr. Jones?
One question.
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Chairman, like Ms. Emo said, you've got some really dedicated and passionate parents and in that group, and they certainly keep the division on its toes in terms of what we do with gifted education. And I know at the high school level, it is a challenge because the high school students are so busy with other things usually, and so I do appreciate what we're trying to do there. I know we survey students as well as parents and teachers in this, and do the students feel like there's a value added in being labeled as gifted at this point? Or are we still hearing that from students, or?
Certainly, it depends on what grade level we're discussing. And our, in the first year, we've had some transition with some of our gifted resource teachers, and so especially at the secondary level, letting students know who their resources are. So making sure that they are aware of where their resources are is a critical piece of that, to make sure that they are feeling like there's that value added. But that's something that we've been continuing to work on at the secondary level, but that's an important part of it.
I know it's a challenge,
Yeah.
and I just want to make sure that the clients
No,
or feel like it's worthwhile. Otherwise, you know, we've missed our mark. And having been there and done that, I know it's a tough target to hit. So,
correct.
Second thing, just in reference to what Ms. Emal asked about working with teachers and getting teachers classes, the Appomattox Regional Government School has set up a program with Virginia State where he's gotten a terrific tuition rate through Virginia State for them to get their tuition, to get their endorsement gifted education. So Dr. Jones might want to contact Dr. Victory and see if there's any way that we could emulate that in our division. We may not be able to. I mean, they're close and all those things, but but nonetheless, it may be worth looking into. And just a thought, if we truly want teachers to have this endorsement, then we might want to consider as a board providing some supplement for those teachers that have the endorsement and actually are working with gifted students. I don't think it has to be a large supplement, but, at the same time, if we truly value this and think that it's something that we want our students to have, then it may be something as we're doing budget discussions that we might want to think about. Not that we need more supplements and more expenses, but at the same time, money does sometimes motivate people who may not be motivated otherwise. So, and it shows that we think it's important. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I have one, and this is intended to be brief, but I know everybody's circumstance is a little bit different, but generally, how many courses are we talking about that it would take a teacher to earn this gifted certification that you discussed?
Gifted education is add-on endorsement.
Okay.
It requires 12 semester hours of graduate coursework, and those are generally in characteristics of the gifted, assessing the gifted, or some instruction of the gifted, and also some social, emotional characteristics of students with gifted. The piece that it can be challenging is that it also involves 45 clock hours of mentorship. So they have to be mentored by a licensed gifted teacher. And so that's the license requirements.
Thank you very much. That was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next presentation is one that board members requested, update of the ongoing work by the Department of Education with updating the SOAs, or standards of accreditation, that's been going on for the last 18 months, is entering its final leg, as I know they're getting public comment before a vote, I think at the end of this month, that to formalize them. So I think we have a good enough picture of where we're headed to update the board and the community on what we're looking at in terms of new SOAs and profile of a graduate. Dr. Alejandro?
Great, thank you. So this process began with the implementation of ESSA, and you can see that that happened on this cover sheet. The timeline started in 2015 and now is going through where we are now. But ESSA is the Every Student Succeeds Act. It was signed in December of 2015. And there were some basic tenets under the ESSA Act. It's the one that replaced ESEA, or many of us know as No Child Left Behind. It's important for them to take a look under ESSA at disadvantaged and high-need students. It also made sure that we were looking at success for college and career, and that also we were looking at statewide assessments that were measuring students' progress. So really some similarities to No Child Left Behind, but also looking at some of our gap areas was a component of ESSA. And when they signed it into law in 2015, it was to be implemented in the states in 2017-18. And what I'm about to go through with you all is information that does affect our students who started high school in the 2017 school year. So this school year, this year's ninth graders will be impacted by the high school requirements that are related to this. At the state level, we do have a variety of ways that they determine that schools are being held accountable and divisions are being held accountable for making sure that we are providing the best opportunities for our students. You all have seen the updated school quality profiles that the VDOE has put online. That goes along with those school report cards that used to be in chart form, and now we've got much nicer graphics and more readable school quality profiles that the DOE publishes for us. There are two components of accountability. There's the accreditation process at the state level, and then of course the ESSA, this ESSA Act at the federal level, to make sure that our classrooms are effective and our instruction is effective, as well as making sure that we're providing support and intervention for those students who need it. And then we have our standards of quality that really work with us about how the function of our schools exists, so budgeting and staffing and things like that. So this is how we're determined to be accountable to our stakeholders through that process. When they took a look at ESSA, they realized that they had to change the standards of accreditation here in Virginia. And so there is a group of revisions, as Dr. Jones mentioned, that they have been working on for the course of the last year and a half or so. And we are in those final stages, receiving public comment. Actually, through tomorrow is the deadline for public comment. And they wanted to take a bigger look at school quality. So not just standards of learning results, but having some different ways of looking at how we could measure school quality. And like I said, that public comment is open through the end of the day tomorrow. The expanded accountability will go beyond those SOL scores. It will allow us to take a look at students who are making progress in math and English on test scores, not just students who pass tests in math and English. It will evaluate us based on the fact that we narrow our achievement gaps in certain group areas in English and mathematics. It also will address absenteeism and attendance and making sure that we are on track with reducing absenteeism and lowering our dropout rates. And then finally, the standards of accreditation will look to increase participation in advanced programs as well as career and technical education and service learning for our high school students. What that means is there's going to be a set of school quality indicators that is going to be identified, that it has been identified at both the elementary and at the secondary level. And the elementary and middle school, the quality indicators, you're going to see a listing here, a group of bullets, and they will measure each one of these quality indicators for every school and then for the division. So the first one for elementary and middle is that we're looking at proficiency and growth in English reading and writing achievement, as well as the growth of our English language learners. We'll also look at proficiency and growth in mathematics, proficiency in science. We'll look at the gaps, achievement gaps in student groups in English and in mathematics, and then look at absenteeism. So those are the separate individual quality indicators, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we measure those in a few minutes, that will happen at the elementary and middle school. Fairly similar at the high school level, proficiency in English reading and writing and ELL students, proficiency in math and science. You'll see the elimination of growth at the high school level. English achievement gaps will be measured, as well as mathematics achievement gaps. The graduation and completion index, we've seen that in our previous measures of accountability. The dropout rate we've discussed in the past. Absenteeism has been added as a quality indicator. And then this college, career, and civic readiness, but this is still being developed, so that will be effective in the 21-22 school year. So just some examples of what this might look like, and with some graphics for you all. In the area of mathematics, at the elementary and middle school, we'll look at a combined rate that will include students who pass an SOL in math, as well as students who may not have passed the test, but have measured growth. So if you take a look at the graphic, you're going to see if you had a group of 10 students who are in the figure, the black figures in the example here, if you've got those 10 students have taken the assessment, and in the blue you've got 6 students who have passed, and the others who did not pass. But if you've got 3 of those who are kind of in the orangish color, that they did not pass rather, but they've shown growth, they now count as what we would have known in the past as a pass. So you've got the 6 plus the 3, so you now would be at a 90% for that quality indicator because of those 3 that counted towards the growth. So that's that combined rate and how they work that combined rate. And then at the high school student, they're going to base it on the percentage of students who pass the tests, not the growth, but pass the test in Algebra 1 geometry and Algebra 2. So that's how it's going to be measured for mathematics. A similar sample for English. You're going to see a combined rate for English at the elementary and middle school students, and in this case, this includes how our English language learners would impact that quality indicator. In this case, 6 students passed, they're in blue. We've got 2 that showed growth in orange, as well as an English language learner who showed progress, and that's on English language testing and assessment, not on SOL testing. And then 1 student who did not show any growth and who did not pass a test. And so again, you'd still have your 9 out of 10 there, and that shows how that English language learner would figure into that. And then again, at the high school level, the combined rate would include students who pass SOL tests and the English learners, though, that are making progress. So we'll still track the English learners in the English component at the high school level. Now, how does that impact accreditation? So there are 3 levels for accreditation, and level 1 is going to say that we meet or exceed the state standards on those indicators. So each indicator, they will go through each of the bullet points and determine, did we meet or exceed that indicator? If so, you're a level 1. If not, and you're making progress or you're near the standard, you'd be designated as a level 2, and at a level 3, you would be below the standard. And there are different metrics for each of those quality indicators. So you're going to see that, for absenteeism, there will be a certain rate of absenteeism that would designate you as a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3, and so forth. Once that calculation is done at each quality indicator, then they create a final rating for a school or the division. So schools with every indicator at a level 1 or a level 2 would be fully accredited or called accredited. Then the second level is accredited with conditions, and that would be schools with 1 or more quality indicator that is sitting at level 3. And then accreditation denied would be schools that did not have corrective actions in place to address their level 3 school quality indicators. You'll note that it didn't say that they had level 3 quality indicators, it's that they didn't have a plan in place. So you might have a school that has several level 3 situations or quality indicators. As long as there's a working plan in place, they would put you back up to the accredited with conditions. So it does give us a little bit more flexibility with some of those individual quality indicators. On the right-hand side of this slide are some examples of if a school was being reviewed. You'll see East Middle School at the top. They have all level 1 or level 2 indicators so that they are fully accredited, whereas West High School, which is at the bottom, received a level 3 for their achievement gaps within the area of mathematics, and so they are considered accredited with conditions. And finally, the final component of these standards of accreditation is that profile of a graduate that you've heard mentioned many times. A few things that are changing in that is the fact that we are now reducing the number of verified credits. Students will be using or required to achieve 5 verified credits, and those will be in the area of math, science, reading, writing, and social studies. There's not that extra one that we had in place, one other that we had in place under the current regulations. Also, you'll note that in this chart it indicates that students can take in the area of writing and in social studies performance assessments or performance tasks in lieu of an actual SOL test. And so we've been working on that with our curriculum specialists about how that would look for us here as a school division as we move forward with our students. And again, these are in effect, these specific requirements are in effect for our our current 9th graders rather. Some additional graduation requirements. Again, I said that we've got standard credits for the standard diploma that remains the same, 22. Advanced diploma remains the same, 26, but the number of verified credits has gone down. School divisions on a local option basis that I mentioned can have the performance-based assessments, and in the history and social science also can use that performance-based assessment. And another graphic of our diploma requirements. And I'm sorry, I keep saying 2018. It's our students entering in 2018. I apologize for that. So this will be our class of 2022, and you'll see the way that the standard diploma looks as opposed to the advanced studies diploma. It's really the difference in the number of course requirements versus verified credits. And finally, the accreditation, though, will take place based on, and this is for the 2018-19 accreditation. Again, we will use 17-18 results to start looking at accreditation for 2018-19. And in this case, we will be able to use either the current method of accreditation or the new method of accreditation, whichever benefits the school or the division better. And you can see within the present system, on the left-hand side of this graphic, shows the current measures of accreditation, and then within the proposed system, the changes. And you'll see largely the changes are to measuring achievement gaps in the areas of reading and mathematics, looking at absenteeism, dropout rate, and that college career civic readiness index. And that's it.
All right, questions or comments from the board for Dr. Mondro?
Yes, I do have
Mr. Cole.
questions. I appreciate this. This is one, I'm one of the people that asked for this, and I think it's going to be a process of education as we learn what's going on here. In Dr. Jones and Dr. Almondo, what do you see as the biggest challenge with this new proposal and accreditation?
Sure, and that's, I think there are two challenges. One is, for the first time at the state level, we'll be evaluated based on our performance and achievement gap areas. So that has been an area that we've identified 3 or 4 years ago and have continued to work on the gaps between our students and the performance of students with disabilities or black students or students from low socioeconomic areas. So we know that we have some work to do in that. So it's a little scary knowing that for the first time we'll be evaluated and schools will be accredited based on that performance. The good news is that we've made some progress, steady progress over the last 3 years. The state is going to, I think in February, because we don't even know the goals are yet. So what they have told us as recently as a meeting I had in December was that sometime in February they'll release our 2016-2017 results applied to this new matrix or new standard, so that for the first time we'll really be able to see, okay, this is where we need to go and this is where we may have just missed the mark. So that will be good data for us to have. The next area that I think is going to be a challenge, just because we don't know much about it, is the College and Career Readiness Index. They've talked about it for 2 years. We still haven't seen anything, which is why just recently they pushed it off to 21-22 before it's implemented. So what does that look like? The service learning component is one that we've begun addressing this year. Our students have always done service learning, but we're measuring it and giving them the opportunity to get credit for it and be recognized for it this year. So I assume that will be a component of the index, but we don't know yet.
What about attendance? And have they set any standards about how you measure attendance? And is it attendance in a class? Is it attendance overall? And have they set a standard metric for how schools across the state are going to measure that? Because I can just see that being all over the place, especially the high schools, as kids come and go.
Yeah, we haven't gotten all the details on it. What we've been told is 10% of the school year would be a mark for chronic absenteeism, so missing more than 18 days. But we haven't gotten answers to early dismissal, students coming in late, leaving for doctor's appointments, how that will be measured completely yet. So that is certainly an unknown that initially caused a lot of concern, but at least some of the preliminary data we've received shows that we'll be in good shape in that area if we continue in our current trend lines.
Other questions or comments?
We'll continue to give you more updates on that. I know it's a lot of information to digest, so this is kind of a first blush at it, but as the standards are approved and we get more information, we'll continue to share that with the board. At our February professional development, we'll be sharing this information for the first time with our staff and teachers, so they get a first look at it as part of professional development, so that they can begin looking at what does this mean as we begin looking at this moving forward.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mondro.
Thank you.
Dr. Jones, I believe that takes us to the facilities report.
Yep. Mr. Tibbs is going to lead us through an update on the construction and facilities department. Even though the weather's been Arctic-like outside, work has continued, so we're going to see some of that progress at this point. Mr. Tibbs?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take just a few minutes and summarize the information that I presented to you through your boilerplate. At all the schools, we just continue performing work orders as they come in. During the winter break, we always take that time to have some things taken care of that we could not get to during the summer. So to highlight some of those, we did paint the second floor hallways, bathrooms, stairwell, and door frames at Flat Rock Elementary School. At the middle school and at Powhatan High School, we, over the course of the past 6 to 8 months have experienced some of our drop inlets, some erosion happening around those drop inlets that have become a safety issue for students playing on those athletic fields and et cetera, so we had some of the repair done as well. Powhatan High School, we did some tree trimming in both of the courtyards. Those trees have never been trimmed since they were put in when the school was built, so we trimmed them back to get them away from the roof lines. They were towering over the roof, therefore putting leaves in some of our rooftop units, et cetera. So we did do some professional trimming on those, all the birch trees and the cherry trees in those courtyards, and they will come back beautiful in the spring. We also did some repainting on the Performing Arts hallway. Dr. Massa and his staff identified a change in that and did some painting on that hallway, so we now have the color scheme on the hallway on the walls to match the tile on the floor. So we did do some painting there. We also changed some of the lighting in there just today, actually. Division-wide Service Solutions did an exceptional job over the winter break. They did some reconditioning on our floors in all of our hallways, our main traffic areas, as well as in all of our cafeterias and common areas. So the floors were ready for students to return last week, and they got a little reprieve with the snow that we just had. So they'll be good and ready for them when they return tomorrow, hopefully. The construction projects, in lieu of going through this line by line, I'll just kind of summarize. As Dr. Jones just said, Old Man Winter and Mother Nature have not been on the side of the general contractor or the subcontractors. However, I will say that the building, the middle school building, was in a condition that they could still continue to work, and they did work all the way through this winter weather that we just had, and the subcontractors have been great. The general contractor's been great as well. But in Section A and Section B, those sections are coming along very well. The gym is, all the equipment, the basketball equipment is in the gym. The painting has been done. The ceilings you'll see in the picture, the vent work, duct work in the ceilings is painted the Powhatan orange, and it looks really cool. And so the gym is coming along very well. In the B section, this is the Commons and the Performing Arts area. Again, a lot of interior work has been taking place with permanent light fixtures, drywall, etc. They have started to paint in those areas as well. When you drive by, if you have driven by the A section and the B section, the glass, the windows have been placed into those, and they look very nice also. In the C section, this is the U section that I'm calling the front U section. That includes main hall, office area, and a set of 6th grade classrooms. Also, again, a lot of external work is happening there. Brick veneer has been going up, and the windows have been going up. They now are on the interior of that in the courtyard. If you recall, the last time that we met, I discussed that their focus was to get out of the courtyard, and they are out of the courtyard. They have completely removed all heavy equipment from the courtyard. They have leveled it out. They've actually have already poured the footer foundations for the outdoor classroom spaces that are going to be in that courtyard. Looks very nice. In Section D, the walls, both sets of walls on the interior and on the exterior are completely done from a masonry standpoint, and they are working on framing them and getting the vapor barriers in to put those windows in as well. Section E is the section that they have really started to hone in and focus on. If you recall, that is the section that we kept. That's the old vocational wing that we pretty much gutted and added some roof to make sure that we were in good shape. And the entire building has a roof over it, and it is completely enclosed at this point. So we are glad that for that. That was actually had happened several weeks before the winter storm came, so we are happy for that. They're working on the brick veneer work in those areas, and also getting that up to hopefully being able to put the windows in that section as well. Area F, which is a concessions building, that is not on the key plan, but that section, the walls are up and the steel work is beginning on that as well. The one item that was done over the break that I did not put on here, that I neglected to, and I should have because it's exciting, is the parking lot lighting for Powhatan Elementary was put up, and it looks very nice. Nice LED lights, and it brightens that whole front parking lot up very well. We did, when daylight savings time came in, we did rent a light tower to light up that parking lot until those light fixtures could get put in, and they have been put in. For the village water tower, they dug the well. The well is dug, and it is sitting there, hopefully filling up, so that when they get ready to turn it on, it'll fill the balloon up. Right now, work has stopped. At this point, they will be back in March, once the weather breaks. For the transportation maintenance facility, Phase 2 started the end of October, the first week of November. Phase 2 is the extending site work, coming out around and finishing out all of that. The makeup air unit was installed on December the 7th. That completes all of the mechanical equipment that was required for that building. So essentially, the new building is completely done at this point with a few punch list items that they need to finish. In the old building, the abatement was completed over the winter break as well of the new building, of the old building rather. If you drive by, you'll see it has no windows in it. If you drive around the back of it, you'll see that it's down to just the wood on the roof. They have completely pulled everything off of it. It's sitting there waiting for demolition. Windows and roofing material, again, has been removed from the old building. So on the update, right before the winter break, we went out with the drone and took not better pictures, but some newer pictures, if you will. So this is a newer picture of the site using the drone on the beautiful December day. This is some drone pictures of the transportation maintenance facility. I did not do this when we did the first fly up of the drone, and so these are some pictures of the transportation maintenance facility. And again, these are some pictures. This is from the back of the lot, so you can see that Phase 2 site work that I mentioned that's taking place. On the right of the picture, that's not asphalt. That is actually water barrier that they put down before they put the stone down and compact the stone. So that now spans all the way across.
Let's hope.
No.
For the middle school, this is Section A. On the left side, the site work is continuing as the weather changes, and as we get into nicer weather, the site work subcontractors coming in and doing some stuff. So this is the sidewalk that will be on the west side of the building. So they did this sidewalk and put this in and started to do some curbing on that side in preparation for getting that parking lot squared away. The right picture is that gym picture I was mentioning. So you can see the basketball goals are in, the painting is done, the duct work is the Powhatan orange. In the B section, the Performing Arts and Commons area, again, also you can see that the drywall is up, permanent fixtures, permanent light fixtures. Back in the kitchen area, the kitchen equipment is in. They have put in the walk-in coolers and put the flooring in. That did take a little bit of work because the concrete flooring had to be maintained in a 65-degree temperature, so they had to do some putting real thick tarp over top of that and putting heaters on it so that would cure like it was supposed to. This is the C section. This is the left picture is the front. If you were driving by on Old Buckingham Road, this is what you would see. And the right picture is that courtyard on the inside. As you can see, all the heavy equipment is gone. There's still a little bit of residual work from a coping along the ridge line up on the roofs and et cetera that needs to be done. But from a heavy equipment standpoint, there's no more of that needs to be done, which is good. D section, again, walls, continue with the wall erection, continue with putting in the hollow metal doors, et cetera, in that section, duct work, electrical work, et cetera. And then also in the E section, coming along with that section as well. During the month of December also, we do now have permanent power to this facility. We're no longer on temporary power where they brought in permanent power. The chillers were set as well, and some of our rooftop units were set on the roof. Any questions?
All right, questions from the board for Mr. Tibbs? Are we still, I think I heard you say, but are we still pretty much on schedule at the middle school?
We are on schedule.
All right, so the weather has not hurt us that badly?
Weather has not hurt us, and I will say in all that we have construction meetings twice a month, and the general contractor is on top of it. If there's a section that they can't get to because of weather, the building is so massive and there's a lot to be done, they move to a section that they can get to and do what they need to do. So that they are on target and they're plugging away.
Okay. Any surprises coming out of the transportation facility? I mean,
No. At this point, we're holding tight and figuring out what we're going to do with taking the electrical service that feeds the 2 pumps, or 4 pumps rather, right there. We've got to get that away from the old building before we demolish it. And
Okay, so we've not had any unexpected issues come up?
No,
Okay.
no.
We,
And-
Mr. Chairman, we also, Mr. Johns has a meeting and several of the transportation staff members with county departments tomorrow, Mr. Johns, where they'll be finalizing plans for beginning work on county vehicles.
Oh, great.
We're shooting for a February 1st start date to start that process, now that the mechanics and staff have been in there, learned their way around, and had a few weeks to get acclimated and work on some buses and other school vehicles. We anticipate being able to start on county vehicles here in the next few weeks.
I assume
Mr. Cole.
they like working inside and where it's warm.
Yes, yes.
As
They,
opposed to the old bus shop where we
They,
worked
they do
outside
like
lots
it.
of times.
They've got some very nice amenities there that they did not have, and they are thoroughly enjoying it.
It's a very nice
They didn't mind
facility.
coming in on days like today, or yesterday.
All right.
One other question,
Yes,
Mr.
sir,
Chairman,
Mr. Cole.
and that's with SSC or custodians. I've been reading some Chesterfield responses to them, but based on what I'm not hearing, anything unusual there, the normal stuff that we hear about, but I'm hoping that we're staying on top of them, and I appreciate the efforts that we've made to make sure they're doing their jobs, because that's never good publicity when some of your folks within the division are complaining about their cleaning service publicly in the newspaper. So I'm hoping that we're working to avoid that.
All right.
I have
Yeah,
a quick
we're-
question
Ms. Ayers, yes,
about
ma'am.
the old transportation facility that we were, I think we were taking bids on some of the equipment that was relatively
Mhm.
good.
Yes.
How successful was that? Did
We ended up selling the 2 trailers,
Oh, good.
and we also ended up selling the
HVAC?
HVAC system that was right beside it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
They had a little bit of a hiccup when they were moving the trailers. They did not expect, but that was on them. But they were able to,
Broken in half.
yeah.
Oh, no.
They didn't support it like it should have been, and they got about 2 miles down the road, and it just twisted on
Oh,
them.
my.
But they came back, and they did what they needed to do, and they took it, I believe one company was from Brook Neal, Virginia,
Okay.
and the other one was from Chase City, Virginia. The HVAC system was sold to someone in Connecticut.
Good.
So there was a freight company that came and picked that up,
Right.
but we were able to sell those 3 items.
Good, good. Thank you.
All right, so Dr. Jones or Mr. Tibbs, the proceeds from the sale of those surplus items and equipment, does that go back into the operating fund for the schools?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do we know how much? Do you know what the total amount was?
We'll get that information
know
to
right
you. I
off.
don't know that offhand, but we'll get the
Yeah.
information to
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you very
Mhm.
much, appreciate that. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tibbs.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and that takes us to our closed session this evening. Mr. Cole, would you mind reading the statement for us, sir?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I recommend we enter into closed session pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, excuse me, and pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and school placement of specific students. Codes 2.2-3711A1, A2, and A4.
And is there a second to Mr. Cole's motion?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of Mr. Cole's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session.